right, so I am in Perth, and the Perth rental market is currently sitting with a vacancy rate of less than 1%. Through our home opens for a well-priced property, we are getting around 20 to 30 people through the home open, and generally we only need 1 to 2 home opens. So properties are taking around 5 to 7 days to lease out, and again, that's the stats for a well-priced property. We are definitely seeing rental increases for existing leases, on average around $20 per week, but we have actually done rent increases up to $100 per week for existing tenants. Quite common, I'm finding around the $30, $40 mark is sort of where our clients are wanting us to increase for the lease renewals. And overall, a comment for the market, tenants I'm finding are really aware of landlords that are trying to be cheeky in the rental market, and owners that are just trying to push the market a little bit more and get a higher price. And I'm finding that tenants and prospective tenants are not prepared to overpay for a property yet. They would rather stick their heels in, stay where they are. So I'm finding that's really interesting, and that's sort of a result of some properties still staying around for quite a while on the rental market. It's purely because the owner has tried to push the market too much and should never have done that. So that is the Perth market. Now over to Melissa from Victoria, who will give us an update on her market.
Thanks, Ash. So, alrighty. So, in the Melbourne market is a little bit different. Obviously, we are still sort of coming from the COVID-19 lockdowns and all those kinds of things that happened to Melbourne last year. So there's still a bit of a backlog with that. So within my core area, I actually work within the Western Corridor of Melbourne. The vacancy rate in my area is a little bit, well, substantially lower than the inner city of Melbourne. So the vacancy rate in my area is sitting at around 4.6% at the moment. The vacancy rate in the city has been anywhere upwards of 15% for the last 6 months plus. So there's quite a lot of inner city apartments, obviously with all the students leaving Melbourne, the Airbnbs converting to full-time rentals and things like that as well. So the inner city has been heavily hit. My core area is doing a little bit better than that. So on average, we're probably getting anywhere between 2 to 5 people come through per property, depending on the location of the property and obviously the pricing and all that kind of stuff as well. We're finding that a lot of people are wanting to do private appointments still. I'm actually finding that we're doing a lot of midweek inspections, and we're getting a lot more people through the midweeks rather than actually the weekend inspections. So might be a bit of a shift, I suppose, coming from the COVID-19 issues from last year. We're getting, within our core area, our days on market is substantially lower than obviously the inner city of Melbourne. So we're tenanting properties on average in around 15 days at the moment. So that's still quite a good time frame. Obviously the inner city is a lot more affected than the 20 k's out of town, which is where we're located. So the overall comments in terms of like what tenants are saying, look, there is quite a lot of properties on the rental market at the moment within Melbourne. So I'm finding that some tenants are being taking a little bit more time in actually making a decision about like what property they actually want to go for, regardless of if it's an inner city property or the outskirts of Melbourne. So I'm finding that people are taking a little bit more time and they're being a little bit more cautious about what kind of properties they're going for. And we're actually finding there's a lot of applications that are coming through from people that are trying to get a better deal. So they might be paying rent on a property in the city, they're paying quite a high rent, or even inner city of Melbourne, they're wanting a better deal. So they're coming to a property that is a bit cheaper in rent, and they're trying to negotiate either with their landlord or they're trying to move into another property that's cheaper. So that's what we're really finding happening in Melbourne. So a little bit different, but still kind of working on the backlash of everything that kind of happened last year in Melbourne. So that's a bit of a roundup on where I'm from. I'll hand you to Queensland. You've got Corinne.
Thanks, Mel. So I am from the Beenleigh Corridor, which is the Logan City Council Shire area, and our vacancy rates are under 1%. So February, the vacancy rate was around 0.6%. So that's for the Beenleigh Corridor. And we've only got one vacant property available for rent at the moment. So we're seeing between 15 to 20 people through open homes. Now, similar to what Ash said, if a property is staying on the market, it is because the landlord has overpriced the property. Even though the market is going really well, you will still get the odd property that will sit there for longer because tenants still know the worth of the property as well. Now we get about, yesterday we received about 16 applications on one property from one open home. So even though we're getting 15 to 10 groups through, people are still bringing 3 to 4 people with them to these open homes. So at the moment, we're really having to cap, I think I put about 30 people at one time on one open home, because if 29 register, then we get 15 to 20 show up, but they also bring 3 to 4 for all their kids or family members with them. We have lines up down the street trying to get people through open homes as well to adhere with social distancing, only having so many people in a property. So it is a little bit full on for us from a staff perspective. And we are finding that tenants are getting very frustrated when they're turning up to an inspection and there are lots of people attending the open home because everyone's quite stressed with finding a property at the moment. However, this is then coming into when they're applying for properties, they're offering more rent as well if they feel like that's going to secure them the property better. So we don't ask the tenants to do that. However, we have found that people are offering rent in advance or offering more rent on a property because they've missed out on so many other properties in the area. It's probably taking at the moment 3 to 7 days to lease a property, depending on what day of the week it's listed on realestate.com. We usually do 1 midweek open home, possibly 2, depending on the quality of the applications and what section of Logan that property is listed in. And generally it's rented from a midweek inspection. We are finding that afternoon inspections are working really well for us, anywhere between 4 to 5 o'clock. We get quite decent groups through open homes. The lease renewal side of things, we are still only seeing owners increase by about $10. A lot of our owners aren't really wanting to push on their tenants too much. And because our market's been going so well for so long, a lot of the properties we have leased have been leased at quite decent rent amounts as it is. So we don't really have to increase too much to meet the market because we are still quite a new business. We've only been operating for 18 months. We have already been able to achieve quite decent rental returns for these investors, so they don't want to push back on their tenants too much by increasing the rent too much. But overall, the market is going really well. I'm really hoping it stays like this. Over to you, Jodie, in Northern Territory.
Hey, thanks, Corinne. So we're based in Darwin and we have a very similar story to Perth. So the last vacancy rate that we had here, so the most current one is 0.7%, so that's under 1%. And that's coming from up around 9 and 8 2 years ago. So it's been a massive change for us very, very quickly. In terms of people going through opens, there's a few people doing things using videos up here, trying to cut down on the number of people through opens. It's more efficient for us. It's more efficient for the people looking at properties. But we are hearing people saying there's 40 to 60 people showing up to opens. We try and avoid that as much as possible, but that is happening. And on our properties, we're getting between 10 to 50 inquiries in fairly short order, depending on the property and the pricing. So similar to what Corinne and Ashley have been saying, although the vacancy rate is very, very low, if owners are still overpricing or if the property is in need of a paint and a little bit of an update, those properties are still sitting vacant. Generally though, if it's priced well and presented well, it should lease in a week without too much issue. In terms of rental increases, we're seeing increases on existing leases between $10 and $80. Sorry about that. Just decline that call. We're seeing sort of increases of $10 to $80. It depends on the tenancy. We try not to price people out, but we're sort of stepping it up. And we have heard of increases of over 100 a week. So that's not unheard of. But obviously, if you've got a good tenant in place, you'll try and avoid that. Just try and step it up. Now, in terms of benefits for landlords, we are seeing a lot of really good applicants coming through, so really good tenancies. So this is a good opportunity to get a good tenant in your property. The rents are increasing, so we're starting to make up some of the ground we lost between 2015 and 2019. Now, for anyone looking to get out of the market, sales prices are also increasing. So we have quite a few clients who are putting their properties on the market as well, just to sort of move that money to other places. Now, in terms of concerns for the market, a lot of this is driven by COVID, So it's really hard to say how long term it's going to be. Obviously, while there is uncertainty with COVID, it'll be good for our area, but it's hard to know once vaccines get sort of more widespread and things are a bit safer. It's hard to know how much longer it'll continue. So that's it from us in Darwin. Back to you, Ashley.
So I'm going to fill in for the ACT and New South Wales update. So their vacancy rate is sitting at 1.3%. They are still averaging 20 to 30 people through home opens, and they have a huge supply and demand issue. Their properties are taking between 5 to 9 days to lease. However, they're finding that most properties are leasing with the tenants still in place, which is great. Their rent increases, they are mostly finding $10 to $20 per week, and the odd $100 per week property, which we all have. An overall comment on the market for ACT New South Wales border is that their area is very protected by the public service. So their employment and income is very stable. So they're seeing a lot of movement from people outside the area heading there. Traditionally, they are a transitional area. However, this did happen at the start of the year due to COVID. This is what has affected the supply, push properties up. Currently, they have some of the highest weekly average rentals in the country, which is also seeing a return of investors into the sales market. They can't see this changing for some time. The rental market will remain strong, and that update is from Carly Maxwell over at LJ Hooker.